Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now, when we talk about marriage, in any scenario, I think the most important thing people always think about when it comes to growing their family is their children. What's going to happen to our children? And that becomes even more complicated when you add someone with a disability. Because, well, are our children going to carry this? Are they going to have that similar disability? What's the probability of them having it? And then all of a sudden, because of that legitimate concern, people say, we just don't even want to go down that path. But it's so important to understand that there are a lot of people that have types of disabilities, but it's not genetically related. It's also can't even be transferred. A lot of these disabilities have absolutely nothing to do with genealogy and may not transfer unless both individuals are carriers. And these are things that, especially, alhamdulillah, in the era that we're living in, something that we can easily get an answer for. We can look into it. We can say, this does carry on, this could carry on, we can look into it. And that's important. And it's a legitimate concern. Why would anybody want to do that, right? This has nothing to do with the qadr of Allah, not believing in Allah. It has to do with being prepared and understanding that, this might happen. But you always hear about people, both parents actually might both be blind and all their kids are fine. You hear about individuals that they're deaf, but their children are completely fine. It doesn't always carry over. And there's a simple fix. For people that are concerned about that, and a proposal comes your way, and you open the door, and at this point, after we learned everything that we have, you go, you know what, I'm okay. I'm going to listen to those families that have special needs, and I want to see what type of special needs their child has. And who knows, maybe I would be interested in marrying them. We get to this point. And you should be open enough to say, can we get tested? Is this something that you carry, that maybe I carry, or maybe that it can transfer over to our children? That is a sensitive issue, but it should be asked. It should be talked about. And another thing is, if you have a special need, you shouldn't be shocked that someone's asking you that. You have to understand where they're coming from. You need to be willing. I honestly believe you should have that answer at the moment that somebody asks. Can this be something that can be transferred over? Is this a recessive? Is this dominant? All these different things that can be asked. You should have that. Not only the answer, you should have the test because you know what's going to come. People are going to ask you. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not someone taking a shot at your genes. It's not someone taking a shot at where you come from. It's the reality of it is that you're facing a very difficult situation and people are going to be concerned about their children. Because at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to our children. Now, some may argue, well, it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we can do something about it, we will. And we also have to understand there are people out there that don't even want to have children. Right? If you have a special needs, maybe you want to look for, if you're a male and you have special needs, maybe you go, it's too hard, I need someone to take care of me, or I don't know, my special needs is going to transfer onto my children, I don't want that. Then look for someone that may not want to have children. There are people that are different desires, there are different goals everybody has. Open up your mind to different people and ask those questions. If there's a sister out there, the one thing that a lot of people will hold you to is, can you bear children? Can you take care of children? Unfortunately, a lot of brothers say, my children. Can you have my children? Can you take care of my children? There's nothing more sacred than a relationship between children and their mother. And a lot of sisters have special needs and can still have children. It's not difficult. Right? And if it's a matter of if they have children, do we need to get additional help? Sure. Let's get additional help. We can answer all those questions by inquiring and by actually not getting offended. If somebody were to ask me to do genetic testing, I wouldn't be offended because I understand that the disability that I have is genetically related. And no one's looking into my genes and saying that I have a polluted gene pool. I understand, and my family understands, and my wife's family understand that this is part of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are going to try to take the best steps possible. So I ask everyone that have a legitimate concern about the future of their family, about children, to ask. Do not be shy, do not be hesitant, do not assume. And the general theme of this entire series up to this point is what? Communication. That's the first thing I mentioned when we started this with the intention, is we want to open up dialogue. You need to be able to ask. Now, if you have special needs and you're offended by this question, I'm sorry. I'm being very frank. And I know maybe I'm not in the position to say it. Maybe you people will be upset with me for even saying that, but you have to understand where we're coming from. We need to be open about it. This is who we are. And it is concerning. I'm someone that has a disability that is genetically related. And to be completely frank, it's something that people should ask and should be aware of. And it's not like, oh my God, I'm exposing my family. You could just Google it and find out the type of dystrophy that I have. And the reality is that I'm not going to be offended if anyone were to ask me that question. I'm not going to be offended if later on in life, my children, it's time for them to get married and people ask that question. It's fair. It's not an unfair question to ask because you're going to be concerned about the future. And I know my families that are listening to this are saying, okay, we're providing the genetic testing. We're open to it. We're answering those questions. But what happens when the results come back and there is no issues? What happens when you find out that this is not genetically related? How do the other families react to it? And I'm being very frank. This is the inspection before the closing of a house. If you're buying a house, all the paperwork goes through. The last thing you need is the inspection. If you're going to ask somebody, is this genetically related? And you're going to ask a family that's been going through so much, and they come back and they find out that this is not genetically related, at that point, I feel that should seal the deal. Because you're putting them through a lot, you're asking them a lot of questions, and it's not easy. At that point, you should be open to the idea that, okay, all my concerns have been alleviated. Because we're talking, we understand family, we understand how we're going to take care of one another, we're going to understand how they can contribute, they don't need that much help, and this is not going to carry over to my children. What else am I waiting for? Now, obviously, I can't tell anyone what to do, what not to do, but we have to understand the sensitivity. On one side, I'm telling my brothers and sisters with special needs that you need to be open, you need to be honest. On the other side, to be objective, what happens when they share that information with you? That's information that's very sensitive as well, because they're only presenting it to alleviate your concerns when it comes to marriage, when it comes to the proposal. So I think it's important that we find a balance in this discussion. So if people are interested in that information, we have to understand that you should request this type of information only when it gets to the point where you are interested, but that's the last concern that you have. And for our brothers and sisters that do have special needs, you need to be open to present that information just to understand that is a primary concern for all couples, regardless of if someone has special needs or not. We're all worried about our children and our future of our family. So we just need to find a good balance in how we should approach this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.